Well, welcome to all of our wonderful community members that are here live and those that will be listening to this in recap. We know that life, business, and everything happens in the flows. It's ebb and flow, give and take, right? Sometimes we're here and sometimes we just can't be. So rules are show up when you can, screen on, screen off, be part of the conversation, connect and grow together. Each and every month, we try to bring somebody from the community that is really making things happen, because the way that we grow together is following those that know and can show the way, right? So it's exciting to have these conversations. It's really, really fun as we get to the end of the year, of course, looking back on what we've accomplished and where we're headed. And in the theme of the month, we are talking about big, scary goals. And we have a special guest speaker today, which is Brandy Lawson. She is a newly published author, and she's going to talk to us a little bit about her book, Hire Help, which is about utilizing experts around you instead of draining yourself and doing everything on your own off an island, which is a hard place to be, right? So for those community members that are here, thank you so much for being present and being part of it. Brandy, as you know, one of the things we do is we always have everybody that's here and committed to being part of the conversation introduce themselves, because they're important and they want to know that you feel that they're important to be here, part of this conversation, and vice versa. So I'll lead the charge. My name's Adam Griggs. I am the moderator today. I have a company called CLARAfi, and I just absolutely love this community and all the conversations that we share. And I'm going to turn it over to Patty Farmer.
So my name is Patty Farmer. I am a marketing and media strategist and speaker, and I am actually dedicated to helping people to leverage every single thing they do so they can monetize everything they do, so that they can have time freedom and whatever is important to them. That's really something I'm super, super passionate about. And I love this community, and I am so happy to be here.
Hello. I'm Lindsay, mom of 3, yoga lover. I own Waymaker, and I'm super excited about Halloween because I have a party planned this weekend, and that's on my mind.
Yeah, thanks, Adam. Hey, I'm Amy Benzowitz. I work with LB Digital. I help marketers find their best audience and then optimize it for even better results in their campaigns. And I'm excited to hear how experts can help me, because I don't have any experts right now. So I'm excited to learn about how to work with them.
Yep, I'm the other Lindsay, mom of 4, not a yoga lover. I founder and owner of Storyhouse 15. I work with founder-led brands, small business owners who are frustrated because they want to grow and pivot, but they just don't have the clarity and the right story to do it. And so that's where I come in.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jonathan. I'm a marketing manager at GoDaddy, working in social strategy and engagement strategy. I'm a single father foster of 1 geriatric pug currently, and I do a lot at GoDaddy working with our community, and this is such a one of our cornerstone examples of that, and we're so excited to have you with us today, Brandy, and can't wait to hear I can't wait to be a part of this conversation.
Awesome. Thanks, Jonathan. Yeah, I mean, if you're in transition, in demand, like Patty said, or making the plan, these are conversations that matter. So join us and be part of this. Brandy, you are in the hot seat. You are the woman of the hour. You are leading this conversation. I would love if you could share with us a little bit of the backstory on not just obviously writing the book, but everything you've done building FireFX, and how you really feel like you've gotten to this position where you are a sought after author.
Well, that is very generous of you. Thank you. So I'm Brandy. The company I run is FireFX. We are an 11-year-old agency. In the beginning, we started out building websites. And I almost quit doing that altogether because I'm like, I don't like doing work that doesn't get results. And bless every little business owner, they have no idea what they need. Like, well, my favorite color is purple. And I'm like, no, what are we doing here? So I finally found a program that kind of gave me the permission to do what I knew needed to be done, which was to do strategy first, which was to be like, okay, what's your business? What are you trying to do? Great. I will marry that information with what I know, and I will tell you what you need in a website. And so that morphed and evolved. And the original name of my company was Tech Girl. And at some point, people were asking me to fix their printers. I'm like, not what we do. Cool. So we rebranded to FireFX. and started to shift into the more like, hey, we are a digital agency, we are a marketing agency, we help you with these things. And then along the way, I was looking for a niche. Like, I know that's important as a marketer, like telling all my clients, we need to have one audience. This is what you need to do. And I saw it and I saw it. And I was finally like 2.5 years ago, I'm like, I'm really going to put all my focus into figuring this out, and did a bunch of work. And then it fell into our lap. About 18 months ago, a kitchen and bath designer hired us because they were hauling around binders like this for these $300,000 kitchens. And they were like, there's got to be a better way. I'm like, damn, give me there's a better way. And so we've always been really technology focused, but realized that systems are where we shine. So we know a lot about marketing, we do, but systems, like how processes work together. So that's sort of been the business journey. Probably about 6 years ago, I started building a team, which was too late, just FYI. And in 2020, I launched the podcast. So it was called Leverage Your Spark, but now that we have a new niche, it's called Elevated. But they're 5-minute weekly episodes that are like little bites about how to build a better business. And season 2 was actually about how to use experts. And so I had 26 episodes of how to use experts. And doing the podcast for me was I need frameworks. I need frameworks to be consistent. So the podcast was like, here's a framework for content. So we've evolved and grown. We now have a niche. And at the beginning of this year, my COO was like, so we're going to publish a book this year. I was like, you're hilarious. These are funny things. And then we did, but it's not because I decided to. It was because we had a whole team working together and could really rely on each other to do the parts that felt like big. At this point in my company, we're calling them big emotional lifts. Like sometimes the work isn't hard. It's just hard for me. And it feels like a big emotional lift. So in that case, like we tag in another team member, or when we're dividing up a project, we kind of like piece it out. And so the things that felt like big emotional lifts for me, the team tagged in on and then told me what I need to do. And we get real about what Brandy will do and what Brandy will avoid doing. Like, oh, look, squirrel, I'm not going to do that. And build structures and frameworks and support around. So that is the only reason that this thing actually exists. And I did take my own advice when it came time to like, okay, we have a manuscript. What do we need to take this to the finish line? Self-publishing, like there's lots of courses, there's lots of information. You could go figure it out. I was like, or we hire an expert, because even if I publish, I don't know, like 7 more books in my lifetime, is this worth me learning? No, it is not. I'm going to go ahead and hire somebody in to be like, okay, here's what you do. And then take it from here to the finish line. And it's the only way it got done.
I mean, it's important when people hear our backstories, because number one, it shows that you're human and business does evolve. And sometimes, whether we like it or not, our story writes itself, right? You were pushed into an environment where people were seeking after you and you were in demand. And I'm going to keep stealing that from you, Patty, for you to keep using that theme, because it's something you love, right? And I don't know. I mean, a year ago, could you have seen yourself as a published author?
No. And like I had started the book because mostly I come from a place of wanting to share what I know to help people do better, because people would come to me and they trusted the wrong person. They hadn't known enough to ask the right questions. I'm like, can I just give you this information so that you stop making poor decisions, so that you are better equipped to make better decisions? So I'd started this book about like the technology stack you need to build a business. And it was like, it languished and whatever. And in that case, I was like, oh, this is never obviously going to get published because I'm not a writer. I'm not going to sit down and write. But when my CEO was like, oh no, you've already got every season of your podcast is a book. I was like, oh, if we can take work I've already done and then repurpose it, fantastic. Like what else is laying around the warehouse? Like, let's go check the closet.
No, and I think that's valuable and it's important to understand because number one, you've got a goal that was put before you that wasn't necessarily something you came out the gate and said, hey, it's 2023. I'm going to write a book, right? It was your team. And, you know, as business owners, we often see a need, fill a need. That's how we respond. That's how we think that we need to build business. But experts around us that have different perspectives and that are really involved in our team and where we need to get to go, they uncover the needs. They see those things and then they help us set those big, scary, audacious goals. And we have to kind of run with it, right? If it's something that's valuable and important. And one of the things we love to talk about is how to build a business that you can also own and love who you are while doing it, right? You don't want to get siphoned into a corner doing something mundane that's boring and you hate. And sometimes we do start because we got to pay bills. We've got mortgages, right? But business is allowed to evolve. And if we surround ourselves by people that we trust and that we appreciate, that are experts, when they uncover those needs, we have the confidence to take that step forward. And you've done that with this book. So I really appreciate you for that because you said something that was very direct in how you laid out coming to this, decision to write a book. You said it was a big emotional lift, and it is. When you're elevating your identity to whatever the next chapter in your story is, and somebody else is the one that gave you the initial shove, and you've got to really check in and determine, like, is this what I want? Is this how I want to do it? That's hard. That's an emotional lift. And you've got to have people around you that are not just experts, but they're going to give you the confidence you need to see the journey through. And I think that that's valuable. So I appreciate you for that. And this is a conversation, Brandy. So we always allow people to ask questions and give feedback and comments.
Absolutely.
Our hand up. So Patty.
Well, you said so many powerful things there for sure. Not hard for me. Ooh, that's just like so good. That was so good right there. But I think that one of the things that you said is something that I see all the time with my clients and actually happens to me too. And actually even in your website story, right? You hire someone and then you say, oh, this is what I want. 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 And one of the things that I have really learned over time is we don't know the questions we should be asking, right? I mean, my very first website, a WordPress website, no less, my very first website, now I'm with GoDaddy and I don't have to worry about it. But before that, when I remember a WordPress site, it literally, I said, I wanted to do this and this and this and this. And it literally cost me $18,000 for a WordPress site. Like, get real? But it's because they said, yes, I can do that. I can do that. And they coded everything. And the real question should have been, what is it that you want it to do? And then they would have said, oh, there's a plugin for that. There's a plugin for that. There's a plugin for that. So I find that we all do that. We don't know. So what we do is we tell people we're going to hire what it is that we want it. We ask the questions and we don't ask the right questions. We should say, what do I need to tell you? Because this is what I actually wanted to do. Not actually, you know what I mean? And I think that what you said right there was so huge because I think that we don't go about it the right way. And so when we get the finished product, we don't get the results we want because we didn't ask the right questions, but that's not our area of expertise, right? So it's really about, what do I need to tell you to help me, right? So I really feel like that's good. So can you talk about that?
Yeah, I'm dying to talk about that. So one of the things, I actually just gave this a talk on scope creep. So for people who own agencies, for people who do work and like here's what I'm going to do, and then you kind of get into it, and then the client's like, sometimes the client gets excited. Sometimes it's a really positive thing, and they're like, oh, and then we could, and then we could, and then we could, and then. And it's not scope creep itself that's the thing. It's like how we react to it. But in that, there's a Facebook post that it was in a community that I was in part of like 7 years ago that I went back and got because I was like 9 revisions into a design with this client. And I'm like, what is going wrong? Like I did discovery. We did the whole, we followed the process. Like what is going wrong? So the one thing that experts do, because sometimes they don't have a better tool, is that they will use the only 4-letter word that I know. Like you can say all the other profanities, I'm good with it, but do not say this 4-letter word. Do you like it? I'm like, no, no, that's the wrong question. Those are not the right questions. The question is, what is the business result we're trying to get? And does this meet the business result? So when I stopped asking the wrong questions, like, do you like it? And instead I was like, hey, remember this website is for these people, also not for you, because I don't care if you like it, not for you. This website is for these people. These are the results we're trying to get. Here is how these things are connected to the result. ABC. Now, is there anything we missed in the pursuit of this result? That gives clarity to not only the expert, but to the business owner. Because bless every little business owner, us included, we got a lot of things to think about. This is not our area. There's actually a term for the you don't know what you don't know. It's called the Dunning-Kruger effect. Like, we don't know what we don't know. We have no idea the right questions to ask. So not only finding the person who knows, in my career, I was a product director. So I sat between the development teams, the people who are very technical, and the users. And the people that are very technical, bless their little hearts, like they have one view of the world, and they sometimes don't know how to connect that view of the world to needs or requirements or things. So even if you find like the world's best expert, they also need to be able to communicate with you and link their expertise to your needs, and vice versa, right? Just because we know a lot about the thing doesn't necessarily mean that we are prepared to link our expertise to the people that need it. So removing, if you hear somebody you've hired ask you if you like it, you need to reframe that conversation. Like, oh, no, this is not what I want. Because your opinion about if it's blue or red is not going to get people to click the button. So getting experts who know that, or helping the expert understand that you want something more than you like it. I was like, we're not after prom queen websites. We're after intern websites. I don't want somebody pretty that parades around waves. I want the hardest working person in your business. So getting somebody who's willing to understand your needs and they can link them. And also doing that with your clients. It's like, sometimes we get really frustrated with clients, right? Like, I just told you all the things you needed, but we didn't link it to where they're at. Okay, good.
Yeah, I mean, that's a lot of great feedback, especially when it comes to hiring experts. We're bringing in a team of people that are going to be part of your company. It's very difficult and really scary to have somebody talk to you very direct, especially if you are already feeling out of your element and you're asking for help, because, you know, ignorance is bliss until people discover it, right? Then it feels shameful most of the time. And when you're working in an environment with an expert, sometimes they take that as like their moment to be arrogant or push the envelope, or to try to charge you more, or confuse you so that you rely on them more. And that's not a way to do anything either. And that's why I love the way that you've written your book, because you're talking about having the ability to grow and really shortcut some things by having meaningful conversations and expanding your capacity for work and for what you do and what you love. And I think that that's important, because both people involved in this are in a relationship that have to communicate, and they have to communicate clearly, concisely, and confidently, but still understand, like, we're here to love what we do, not to be shamed, not to cut through the noise and be, you know, the cutthroat salesperson or anything like that. It's about building what you love and doing it right with experts surrounding you that give you that confidence. And that's why I love that you titled it Hire, H-I-G-H, help, instead of H-I-R-E, right? Because it's important to elevate your own surroundings, your own identity and your business and those that are with you. If you're elevating as a team, God, the confidence that comes with that is just stellar. And I just appreciate you for sharing that with us, because you've really touched on some of those points, which is to be direct when you need to, understand the questions and uncover that need instead of see a need, fill a need, and being shallow in the approach. So I appreciate you for that.
Yeah, I found, Patty's question and Brandy's answer, like, really, I really related to it. And one of the things I have trouble with when I do work with other people, and I don't know if anyone else feels this way, but I actually, as I do things, I kind of think through them as I'm doing them. And I have a very hard time saying, this is what I want to do and like give it to someone else because I haven't really thought through what it is I want or what my end goal is. I like work through it as I'm doing it. So how would you suggest like people work through that, or the best way to work with experts if you have this issue?
Yes, yes. So this is, Amy, this is a skill. This is a skill that we build over time because, especially if we're starting out sort of on our own, or sometimes the curse of being able to do too many things well is that we will continue to do all of the things. And I finally got to a point in my business where I was like, oh, okay, there's an invention part and then there's an implementation part. And sometimes I can't see the end of it until I've kind of gone through the invention. So I borrowed a lot. I'm building this skill with my team because I was like, I don't know what I want. It just needs to be done. So I started building the skill of borrowing from Brene Brown here, painting it done. So like transporting my mind to the end and then talking about, if I can't name the thing, what's around the thing? Like what are the results or the impact of having the thing done? And letting go of the, well, I think my picture should be in the right hand. So I started trying to give myself permission to sketch it because mostly when I'm doing it, I'm like a painter in the studio and I'm in the process and I'm going to really like this. Oh, no, this, no, this. So instead of like, this is the painting I'm building, if I'm trying to hand it off to somebody else, I'd be like, all right, so I want it to go in my living room and I want it to feel soft and I want it, like, I kind of give the context. And then if it's something business related, for example, I'll use the book. When I was working with my team and I needed somebody else to do the social posts, I'll be like, here's my intention. The intention of this thing is that we get the book into the hands of the people who need it. Here's those people. Here's kind of what that looks like. And we build these frameworks. So the first time you do this, it's not going to go perfectly. In fact, it may not go well. But giving ourselves permission to iterate, giving ourselves permission to build the skill. And for me, I am, do you guys talk about the Enneagram at all? I'm an Enneagram type 3. I am the performer. Like if I cannot do it perfectly, I will not do it at all, which is a real problem for me. So I really had to give myself permission that everything's a skill. And the first time I got on a bicycle, I couldn't ride it perfectly. I had to keep trying. So Amy, this is simply a skill that you need to build. And you will need to iterate and feel your way through your process. For me, I always do best if, as I'm failing forward, I'm building my structure, building my framework, so that each time I'm like, okay, I'm a one step more on this ladder, and I know what to get, and I can fail up and build myself a little bit more.
Nice. I like, yeah, definitely. I like how you said to just kind of get the intent of what it is and kind of, look at it like bigger picture. What does it look like at the end versus thinking how I would do the steps, which gets me.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. Letting go of the how. Letting go of the how, because the magic that eventually happens is someone will do it better than you could have.
I'm sure. I don't doubt it. I just have to do it.
Yes.
I appreciate that question, Amy. And what a wonderful answer, Brandy, because the way that you just conveyed this is to start with questions about why you need something done instead of just a task, but you use the word impact. And that goes for both sides. That goes for the owners who are and founders who want something done. See if it's more than just a task. If it's just a task to keep you busy, it's probably something menial that either should be delegated or might not even be necessary. But if you see the impact, the question you got to ask yourself is, have you shared this with the people that surround you? Have you shared with the experts you've hired? Have you communicated that so that you're not just, overwhelming yourself, but circumventing your own success? Like you said, Brandy, sometimes you'll find out that somebody could do it a whole lot better than you, probably a lot faster, and free you up to do what you love and scale the business and just be better. So I appreciate you for that. Jonathan, I know you've had your hand up for a while, and I apologize for that. I'll turn it over to you.
No, not at all. This has been great. I've just really enjoyed listening to this conversation and all the back and forth. I wrote down a couple things that you said a little while ago, actually, that really stood out to me. Especially working in social media marketing and everything that's kind of happened with me. You mentioned about how with your podcast and how your CEO was kind of explaining to you how it could be done. It's like you mentioned that you could take work that you've already done and repurpose it. And I always love thinking about the mileage that an idea is going to get, or the way you execute on something, especially if it goes poorly and you've learned something from it. Like, I really am a true believer in anything is content as long as you find a way to make it add value to people's day. I really, really appreciated the way that you kind of walked through how you got to where you are by going through those kind of speed bumps, those hurdles of, but like, I don't have to make all this new content. I would have to make it, but I've already kind of done the groundwork for it. And then in that same vein, you said another thing that I just wanted to jump out, where when you were talking about your book, and this kind of went hand in hand a little bit with the podcast, is I feel like these were both two ventures that you may not have necessarily seen yourself doing, but as you said earlier, you said, I have a lot to say, but I'm not a writer. And that idea of, well, I have to be a writer before I can say anything that I want to say is, I think, such an important thing for entrepreneurs to hear, especially people, as we're faced with all these new technologies and different ways of communicating with people. There are so many things that you should be an expert on before you put yourself out there and say, I am an expert on this. But there are also so many things that you can go, I'm just learning this, but I have a lot to say, so I'm going to find a way to do that, and I'm going to surround myself with the people who will help me do that the best that I can. Right? That idea of like, I want to write, but I don't have to learn publishing. Like, I don't need to learn, the entire funnel of how a book is done. I have the thing I want to say. How can I leverage my community to help me to do that? And I just love that message, and think anyone watching this should really run away with that. That kind of that sort of bright-eyed optimism of like, I'm not a writer, but I'm gonna write a book because I have something to say, I think is very, very potent. I really do.
And there's a million ways to do anything. Part of wanting to get this book into the world was that people don't realize there are people to help them in many different ways. And I wanted to kind of open people's minds to looking for help in places they didn't expect it. For example, like non-necessarily business related. I built this recently. Somebody reached out for a client I built a website for like 9 years ago. She is a medical reimbursement expert. So those stack of medical bills. My son had to have a surgery like 2 years ago. It was pretty straightforward, but I still had to spend like all of this time like figuring out, did I get reimbursed with places? She does that. You hand her the stack of medical bills, and she knows everything, and she knows all the coding, and she takes care of it. Does anybody have any idea that exists? No, they don't, unless you like had to really like get to the point. And there's also like people who will help place elderly parents in homes, and their service is free. And they'll also help you file all the government paperwork. I'm like, no one knows that these things exist. So I'm also trying to like help people realize that, you don't have to do all the heavy lifting yourself. And there's probably a way to do it in a way that makes sense for you. So the thing about the podcast is, when I launched it, I was typically terrible about being consistent. There was a lot of baggage. There was a lot of the type 3 Enneagram. Like, if I can't do it perfectly, I won't do it at all, which means I didn't do anything at all. But I actually went and got a podcast strategy before I started. Did you know that you can go just like talk to somebody for an hour and they will help you with a podcast strategy? There's so many different ways to use experts. You don't have to hire somebody for the duration of your business. You can have a consultation. You can get a small engagement. You can hire them to do a specific project. Like, there's so many ways to leverage the experts of others. And then like flipping that, if you have a specific offering and somebody came to you and they're like, I'm not quite ready for that, but could I hire you for an hour? You'd be like, well, you can hire me for an hour. I'm going to show up and like knowledge bomb you and then GTFO. Like, this would be great. So like, just, I wanted to like expand people's perception of how to use what other people know.
Yeah, I mean, it's supply and demand, right? It's so interesting to think about it in those terms of, you know, fundamental capitalism of like, if there is something that you need and someone else has ever needed it, it's very possible that there is someone who has come up with a supply for how to solve that. And even just having those skills, as you've mentioned, to consider that and to think about, you know what, this isn't necessarily this isn't a deal, this is a problem, but it's not a deal breaker, because I know there is someone who will help me through this hurdle. And I loved what you said about how you have to marry this person. You're not going into business with this person. You can leverage their skills and you can get what you need from their business. And then you always have that knowledge. You'll always have that no matter what. And that's such a very, such a very important thing for people, I think, to take away from this conversation.
No, I appreciate that. And obviously this conversation could go on and on and on when it comes to talking about business hiring experts and really taking your dream to the next level, right? Making it a reality. But I won't harp on that. I know we got just a couple minutes left and people should really read your books if they want to learn that. So there's my plug. I will say, I do have a quick question for you, and it's kind of in line with the supply and demand, you know, back and forth that you and Jonathan just had. People tend to shop for things that are relevant or proximity or proximate to them, right? They're either searching for it or somebody around them told them about it. So really awareness comes down to opening your mouth and doing it often and doing it in a meaningful way, right? Not being salesy, but sharing with people what you do and why you do it, because that's the catalyst for impact. As far as the book, how do you feel this would help leaders that are running communities, online social platforms, people that have many different experts from different walks of life? Do you think that maybe this would help them engage a little bit better with some of their, you know, connected members? Or, I mean, can you talk a little bit about that, Brandy?
Sure. So the book is laid out as kind of like a blueprint. So it like first talks about like why to hire experts, how to know when to hire experts, when not to hire experts, and like ways to work with experts. So it like lays the foundation. So when it comes to like running online communities, things are changing at a pace we've never seen before, right? And to try to stay relevant to community members, to try to stay in front of community members, you might be trying a bunch of different tactics. You might be trying, the other thing I talk about in the book is measuring the results. So sometimes I think this book could help people who are running online communities by like maybe taking a step back and be like, what is success in our community? How do we want to define that? And then where are our gaps? And is there somebody from the community we can elevate to help fill that gap? Is there somebody external that we could, and then how do we also connect the people in the community so that they're aware of the expertise of others? So it could help, like, back to the linking thing, which is, I recently discovered that one of the areas of skill that I'm much more aware of building now is how to link what I know to what people need, because that's a separate skill from stuff I know. And so I'm sort of natural. I was told that my superpower is analogies, because I'll take something really complicated and figure out what you already can relate to, put it together. But linking, helping the people in your community link what they do to either the needs of the community or the purpose of the community.
Yeah, I love that. And, you know, I just think about our community, right? As this book came through my inbox, I mean, honestly, I've been following your podcast, you changed the branding, and then all of a sudden you're like, hey, I wrote a book. I hit purchase immediately, just because I know the value of the content you brought over the years, just following you. And I love your voice and the perspective that you bring. But I think about our community, right? How many people are involved inside of this community, how many experts there are, and people from different walks of life and locations and availability. And it's overwhelming. I mean, it really is overwhelming. And so I really appreciate you for sharing a lot of things in this interview, this session, that people should probably focus on, which is you hired experts 6 years into your journey, which you said was too late, which means we should
It's way too
probably
late.
be looking. We talked a lot about asking questions of impact so that people know why and what you're looking for, and having that conversation and making it a simple, approach together. And then we talked about supply and demand and not being married to the expert, right? It's not marriage for life. Sometimes it's in the moment when you get it over the hill and you get to that next elevated status, boom, you can move on. And guess what? That's a feather in their cap. That is another referral that you can send somebody else because they did you right. It's okay. And I really appreciate you for that, because that allows us as members in the community to start getting to know each other better, to start focusing on connections that are meaningful in the moment, but remembering that if we have moved on, if we have experienced that interaction, that we should probably turn back around and share how grateful we are, right? And share what they did and elevate each other's status, because that's how community leaders grow. And it's both ways, experts and founders. When you're in a situation where you've worked together and you've really found, like you said, what is the definition of success? You found that joy. I mean, there's nothing better than sharing that with others, because it's giving, it's gratuity, it creates happiness, and it draws us together. And I really, really appreciate that. That's really the theme in your book so far. And I'm excited to read it. I know everybody that's on this call has been jumping on your website and buying the book. And I just appreciate you for sharing how, why, and where you're headed at with this book and your voice, Brandy. And we're at the last 15 minutes of our hour. So I'm going to open it up to the community members to ask questions, give kudos and comments. And Patty is first with her hand up.
So the first thing I want to say is I just so love your enthusiasm, right? I mean, it is just infectious, really. And I really love that. I bought your book too, so I'm so excited. But I really want to touch on this sentence of, how do I link what I know to what they need? Which pretty much seems like, well, wouldn't everybody ask themselves that question, right? I mean, it just seems like such a basic question, but usually asked in a different way, right? Is a different way, because, for me, I have built my business on building relationships and partnership. Like, that has been the name of the game for me. It has been really good. But when you put it the way, in that sentence, the way you frame that sentence, it's almost like, how do I link what I know to what they need? And then it's almost like, oh, link is the magic word. Like, you want to highlight that word to be like, well, what? Wait a second. Like, what's the link? Like, if you ask that question. So I love the question. So if you were going to ask that question, could you share? Because as soon as we're done here, I'm going to go share this on social. So, and tell about it. And I want you on my podcast too. So I will say that too. But what would be the 3 things? So if somebody was asking themselves that question, so not necessarily, well, we should actually ask it of our clients too, but we'll just start self first.
Yes.
If you were going to ask that of yourself, how do I link what I know to what they need? Could you give us, like, what are 3 things they should be asking themselves first if this is the answer that they want to have? Can you share that?
So, So when we have an expertise in something, it's really hard to take ourselves back to the beginning, right? It's like the fish in the water. We're just swimming along and we don't even notice the water's there. But when we talk to people who need what we have, they're way far behind us. So we have to put ourselves back. So when I talk to prospective clients, or when I'm talking to people who don't know what I know, I will get really familiar with their context. Like, what is the context that they're operating in? So if we're going to talk about like systems, if they already have a sales system, and so I'll get really curious about what is working for them and what is not working for them about where they're at, because that will give me data points about their water, about their context that they're operating in. And then I will try not to like jump to the end, because as experts, our tendency is to be like, oh, this, and this. Okay, here. And they're like, wait, where did you go? I don't. So we have to connect the dots and take small little steps. So linking isn't just about, oh, I see that I'm going to actually just take an example from like the Arizona Diaper Bank. I see that the Arizona Diaper Bank needs to make sure that the people who need their supplies can get that information on their mobile phone. Oh, well, then you need blah, 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 blah. No. Then I have to baby step them through from where they're at Okay, so what I heard you say was that the primary consumer of what you have to offer typically doesn't have a lot of money, that they're probably relying on their mobile device. Is that true? Okay, so validating, because I will assume a lot of things based on this. So the link is baby steps. So curious, where are you at? What's your reality? Okay, step 1, confirm I heard what you said. Step 2, these are things that are available. Step 3, here's how I'm drawing my conclusion. Step 4, here's what you need. But we tend to skip those individual steps and go like, oh, here's what you need. And sometimes they get it, but sometimes you're like, okay, why? Or what? So framing that context, baby stepping our way to our conclusion helps, one, drive up their confidence in our expertise, because they're like, okay, they get it.
And you're listening.
Yes,
you're listening.
and I'm listening. And they're not going to sell me something I don't need, because now I understand why I need the thing, as opposed to just, oh, now you need SEO and PPC. I'm sorry, what? Why would I need that? So yeah, really, really clear about their context, reflecting that back to them, and then baby stepping them to the conclusion that I came to 30 minutes ago in my head, but they would have no idea why I know that, or why I would say that if I don't walk them through it.
Or why they should hire you to get there.
Yes. And that's also part of what I say in the book is like, don't hire just the expert who knows the thing. Hire the expert that you want to work with. Hire the expert that is going to communicate with you in the way that you want to be communicated with. Hire the expert that you feel confident with. And sometimes those are not the experts with the best marketing.
You know, I love that so much, because I know a lot of times, you know, being in the marketing space, that, you know, people will talk to you for like 5 seconds and then they'll say, oh my gosh, Patty, that sounds so amazing. Because, you know, they already kind of stalked you and, you know, whatever. And then they're like, oh, could you send me a proposal? And I have to tell you, you should see the look on their face when I'm like, no. And they're like,
never.
no. I'm like, well, I don't know enough about your business to give you a proposal. Like, you know, what do I know about your business? And they're like, oh, well, how do you do it? I'm like, well, how about if we like have a longer conversation? I ask you some questions, kind of get to know, and then maybe we kind of talk about an action plan with like some benchmarks and how we're going to get you to where you're going. Not like, I mean, if somebody just gives you a proposal and they talk to you for 5 minutes, you should run so fast, right? You know, because you're just blowing smoke. So so I love that. I love what you're saying. So
that's so Patty, next time somebody's like, well, can you give me a proposal? You're like, well, so you want a blueprint for a house that I know nothing about what you need in the house? Like, no, let's go build the blueprint. Like, we need to talk about the results you want so that I can architect something that's going to get you those results you want. Then you and I will know how much that's going to cost.
Yeah, that was a great question, Patty. I appreciate that. I mean, really, you're starting with curiosity, you're building validation, and you're selling them the solution, which gifts them the impact of what that solution really means. And I think that's so much value as an expert for anybody listening to this, to know not just your trade and not just know your expertise, but know that you are bringing an impact to somebody's life and allowing them to step back and bask in that and be grateful for that. That's a gift that comes after selling. And that's where you want to be, because that drives the confidence. And that's what gets you the gigs over the next person, like what Brandy said. So I really appreciate that. I think that was a great question, Patty. Jonathan.
Thank you.
This all kind of ties into, I had thought of this question and then we just had this conversation. My question was about trust. My question was about, it's one thing, again, like it's one thing to be an expert and it's one thing to have a resume, but there's such a barrier between having that information out there and actually getting the trust of someone, especially, you know, if they've worked with you before, that's one thing, you're building on something, but to get new clients. And, you know, again, Patty, you two kind of covered a lot of this already with that idea of like hiring the expert that you want to work with. What would you say are some strategies or some relatively low lift ways that people going to kind of source new clients or kind of get themselves out there in an industry? What are some ways they can go about establishing or a starting point for building trust with people?
So there's a Brad Martineau, who runs 6th Division, said the greatest thing ever. He said, we teach our clients not to be crazy. And like where that comes in building trust is that when you go out and you are doing a thing and you're new, like you're still kind of building your framework, but the more you can express the expectations to people about, and and my analogy here is a pilot. Like when you get on an airplane, do you know the pilot? No. Why do you trust him? Well, there's a vetting process. They wouldn't have hired, blah, blah, blah. But as he's flying the plane, when do you see the most nervous flyers? When the pilot's not talking to them, when the pilot's not setting expectations. If the pilot's like, hey, we're on the runway, we got 5 more minutes, blah, blah, blah. Like when the person piloting the plane that you're going to have to put your trust in is telling you ahead of what's happening, what's going to happen, and setting your expectations, and then that thing happens, you're like, oh, okay, he does know what he's doing. So piloting the experience, even if people haven't hired you yet. So in sales calls, talking about here's our process, here's what you can expect, here's what we expect of you. Like the more transparent you can be, the more you can call out the shakier parts. Like, does the pilot just ignore the fact that there's going to be turbulence? No, he does not. He's like, so we see there's going to be turbulence and we're going to ask you to this, and this.
Yeah.
That's how you build trust. And then it's small things. If you say you're going to do something, do it. If you say you're going to show up, show up. And consistency doesn't have to be posting daily on social media. But if somebody signs up for your email and you say they're going to get monthly emails, they need to get monthly emails. If you say something, then do it consistently. And that's, even though it might seem like, well, no one's going to notice. Yes and no. Like if you skip one, like it's not the end of the world. But the more you can be consistent in your presence, wherever you're choosing to show up, the more you're building trust because people know they can rely on you.
I actually really love that because I think
Yeah.
sometimes when you're building trust and you're doing what you say you're going to do, just like what you said with the pilot, sometimes things come up. And as long as you tell them, I mean, I know that when I let every one of my clients know I'm going to be gone for 12 days, I'm going to be out of pocket, right? I'm on a cruise. I'm going to be out of pocket, but I can be reached by this. This is when I will be back. This is when I will, whatever. So like they know that, oh, okay, so she's not going to be able to be here, but they know when you are. You're not just saying, oh, I'll contact you when I get back. You say, I'm going to this, and I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to do this. And I think even when something gets thrown, right? Because we live in a world where, things get thrown at us, as long as you communicate that and then tell them what's going to happen. Because again, like what you said in the plane, we don't want to have turbulence, but it does happen.
Yeah.
We don't want to be stuck on the runway for an extra 30 minutes or whatever. It does happen. But when we know what to expect, you're right. It does build trust and makes us feel like, oh, you're either going to do what you say or you're going to let me know what is going to happen. And that's what they really want.
Yeah.
I think that rounds it really, really well for this conversation. I mean, ultimately, we all know we are in the throes of business. We're building something that's meaningful to us, our own brands, our own business, our own availability to be experts in our space. But knowing when and how to engage on both sides of that relationship and having communication that's got context, curiosity, validation, trust, all of this matters. And it's really hard to get out of your own way sometimes. And I think your book, the whole theme around your book does a great job of disarming that. And I love that it's built as a guidebook. It's a system. It's something that's palatable and easy to understand. And then, of course, Brandy, you're a real person. So anybody that's listening to this and you get the book, you have questions, you can connect, right? LinkedIn's a real place.
Yes.
You're talking right now. So continue the conversation. If you're building impact, whether it means sharing systems or being in demand as an AI, expert, or being a partner in accountability, or validating, the proper story and the data. I mean, we all have different expertise here that's on this call. Understanding when, where, and how we're going to share those expertise. And then if we do get that connection, that referral, that opportunity, building that trust and maintaining it is so important. It's so important. If you're going to impact somebody's life, you've got to lead with an understanding that the end of the road is trust. The end of the road is joy. It's being grateful for what took place. And if it's not a forever story, that's fine. If it is somebody that's in it for the long haul and they're somebody you're picking, God, that means so much more. So I appreciate for all you shared with us today. I love Love, love. Again, the title of the book. For those that are listening, go to higherhelpbook.com. That's HIGHER, higherhelpbook.com. You guys can get your copy of the book. And then anywhere that we can send them, Brandy, before we, close this out, where can we send people to connect with you? That's,
You can go to, so I'm on LinkedIn, obviously, but you can also go to fieryfx.com. That's FIERYFX.com. Find all the stuff there.
Beautiful. I appreciate it. And so much grateful energy that came out of this call. I really appreciate everybody that was on the call, part of the conversation, and offered, questions, comments, kudos, all of that. And taking your time away from your busy schedules and business. I mean, there's so much joy that I get out of this. So I appreciate everyone that was here. Thank you. And thank you, Brandy, for sharing your story.
Thank you for the conversation. This was so fun. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you for joining us today.
Yeah. Have a wonderful weekend and get after those big, scary goals, guys.
Oh yeah, have a great party this weekend, Lindsay. Have a great party.
Yes, have a great party.
Bye.
Bye.